In Titus 2, older women are commanded to teach what is good so they can help younger women love their husbands and children. On today's show, you'll hear from older women who will share timeless, relevant biblical wisdom and personal, profound life experiences to help answer your questions and teach what God says is good so you can be the wife and mother you were created to be. Welcome to another episode of Older Women Likewise.
Welcome to Older Women Likewise. We're so glad that our viewers could join us, and we just want you to know we have quite the dream team this evening to have a wonderful discussion about some lessons that we've learned over the years that we want to impart to you. We're just going to have a bit of a roundtable discussion about some things we've learned that we want to share with you to help you, hopefully to miss some of the mistakes and to gain some benefit from perhaps some unfortunate experiences we've had or that we've seen others have. Colleen, it's good to have you back with us again this evening. We just really always appreciate your being with us. How are things going?
Everything's going really well. I'm busy getting materials ready and revamping some materials for my kids' Bible class. So that's always I'm always behind on that, but that's what I've been working on.
Oh,
good to be here.
That's good. Thank you. It's good to have you with us. That's right. I've been working on Bible class lessons for Beth and Philip's trip to Moldova in the fall. I've been cutting things out, putting them together. So that was my little part to help her on that trip. But Beth, how are you all doing? You all remember Beth is my daughter, so you know.
We're doing good. We were empty nesters for about 4 months, and I told Philip I think I prayed a little too hard because all of the kids came back home and the house is totally full. But I love having them home, and yeah, we're going through a lot of groceries. It's a lot more groceries. It's been really wonderful to have them all home, and to see the blessings. It helps me appreciate the blessings of being an empty nester and the blessings of having all the kids home. So
that's true. That's right. Absolutely. Kathleen, it's good to have you with us this evening. Kathleen Trigg is with us. Tell us something about yourself. I know it's been a while since you've been on the program.
I am a preacher's wife, an elder's wife. I am a mom to 3. My oldest 2 are married, and my oldest daughter has given us a grandbaby. And my youngest is still at Florida College. She's a junior, and I teach at Florida College in the communication department. So I teach ladies' Bible classes. I finished up, I think last time I was on the program, I told you I was studying in the New Testament, the bachelor's degree program in the New Testament. And I finished my degree, not this spring, but the spring before. So I'm excited about that. I love taking all those Bible classes that I missed when I grew up. I wasn't in a Christian family when I grew up. So I missed all that then. So I plodded through and took a couple classes every semester and finished that degree.
That's great. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Well, Gigi is with us again, and it has been a while. Gigi is a regular full-time teacher, public school teacher, I think is right still, yes, isn't it?
That's correct.
So the summer, she said she could be with us in the summer, so I snatched her up to be with us. But again, tell us something about yourself again, Gigi.
Of course. Yes. So I am a school teacher. I've taught for 14 years. I've done everywhere from pre-K up to 2nd grade. And currently I'm a kindergarten teacher. I'll be doing 2nd grade next year. So I'm transitioning from kinder to 2nd. But the thing I'm most proud of is I am a wife. My husband's a preacher as well here in the Phoenix area. He preaches at Monte Vista Church. And I have 2 children. I have an 8-year-old who goes to the same school with me. So we get to have those moments on the way to school together every day. I have a 14-year-old son who loves to play basketball. So we're always busy with him doing basketball. And I just love life. I love being a disciple of Christ. And that's the most important thing about me. So I'm really excited that Isla let me have this moment to try to be a light and help anyone out that I can. Thank you, Isla.
Wonderful. Well, I just appreciate you being with us, with all of you being on the program tonight. I know we have a lot to add, and whoops, there goes the clock. So I'm going to ask Colleen if you'll start off with the first lesson that you think would be helpful.
Are we starting with the list of questions you had, or things that I thought of?
Things you thought of is great. Just, whatever you think would like to do. Either one is fine.
Okay. I'll say here's one that people don't always talk about. There are lots of good things to do, and we're talking about things that to teach younger people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Okay. We often teach our kids the value of money. They get $20 for Christmas or something, and then they try to figure out what they're going to do with it. They're going to save some of it. They're going to buy something or whatever. And we usually, I would say most people work with them on that and help them understand how that's important. And they maybe give them a little job and they can earn some money. But I think that if I had to do over again, I would do that same thing. And I would start really early with my children on doing that with time.
Mm.
So maybe you might, as soon as a child is old enough, a baby is old enough to get into a routine where he or she has some things that they like to do. They like to color, or they have something that you can tell them, do you want to do this? Then they say, oh yeah, I want to do that. They're old enough to do that. Then you start giving them start asking them, okay, what are we going to do tomorrow? Let's write down what we're going to do tomorrow. And you might put up, are we going to say a prayer? Yeah, we're going to say a prayer. So we'll write a prayer, and maybe we're going to have a Bible story, and then we're going to play a game, and we're going to go outside, and maybe we're going to have meals, and just little things just to make their little minds start understanding that each day is a commodity, and we need to handle that and manage it well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good way to think of it. That's good. Mm-hmm. Kathleen, do you have one that you'd like to share, or something you thought of?
Well, I think my husband and I are at a stage now where we have dealt with our parents. My father is the only one still living of our parents, and I think we're at a stage now that we're looking at all these things that we've accumulated, and we're thinking, we don't want our kids to have to, deal with all this stuff. And I think if I had it to do over again, I think instead of accumulating all these things, that we would spend more time, spend our money on people and experiences. And I think also from the very start, setting aside to take care of the Lord's people or those in need outside of the Lord's church. I think I would feel better now, instead of looking at a bunch of things that now we're leaving on our porch for Red Cross or the paralyzed veterans to come pick up and take away. Instead of having spent money on those things, if we were looking back on experiences that we had, or using that for other people and developing relationships and those kinds of things. So I think if there were something that I would tell young people today, and I think my daughter's generation, my oldest daughter's generation, is more into experiences, not stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're getting that, they're getting that message, but not just experiences for own pleasure, but taking care of other people and using that to develop relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kathleen, why do you think that people have that sort of, they look back and go, I wish I hadn't bought so much stuff. Why would they buy too much stuff or have too many things accumulated? What?
I think it has to do with, some of it has to do with not being able to delay gratification. You know, sometimes you purchase a bunch of stuff, or some people get themselves in trouble with credit cards and everything else because they think, you know, I need this now. It used to be in our parents' generation, or at least my parents' generation, you didn't buy anything unless you had the cash right there.
Right.
So, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have a television until I was 6 years old because my mom and dad hadn't saved up the money to buy the television. And then when we got our television, it was a black and white, even though color TVs were available then, because my parents didn't have the money for a color television. And I think some of it is just, you know, the materialism of the world around us just kind of creeps into our lives. And Satan's lies that here's something that you need. You know, if you're going to entertain people, well, you need to have better furniture. And if you're going to have people into your home, you have to have a big enough table. And all of a sudden, even the things that we want to do for the Lord start becoming spending money on material things. Mm-hmm. That's just one thing, I think. I don't know. Yeah. But I wish we had thought more about the things that we were accumulating. You know, what is it? I think it was Stephen Wright, who's an old comedian. He used to say, you can't have everything. Where would you put it? I mean, it's true. There's a point at which when you have to keep purging stuff, well, maybe you're buying too many things you don't really need.
Yeah. Well, you know, I agree with that. I think there was a certain peer pressure to have things, and if I'm going to entertain, I need to have this, I need to have that, and we're in the same boat that you're talking about. We're just going, we have too much stuff. Every 6 months I walk through and see, now what can I do without, and I'm doing without. I see too a trend toward minimalism, that, you know, to have less stuff, to not, you know, not just buy to buy. And some people get caught up in a collecting things, and there's one kind of thing that they like, and they end up with this huge collection, like me and Tervis tumblers, right, Beth? And I,
yes.
And but we find things that we enjoy, and we just, you know, keep doing it. What do you think, Colleen?
I think being in front of a screen, that does it. Kids, you know, if you have kids still at home, and, you know, we all need to remember, I've done marketing. Kathleen probably knows, and she's probably taught marketing. That is, TV and all kinds of stuff, almost everything, there's an agenda, there's a product that's being marketed to you. And I think that is one reason people, they get into the habit of spending all their money, because somebody's talking them out of their money.
Yeah.
So professionals are talking you out of your money.
Yeah.
Professionals are talking you out.
Yes, and who's going to win? Yeah. You or them. So one thing that we did with our kids was we just really kept TV to a minimum, and they really grew up pretty much commercial free. So they just weren't in that mode. I'm not saying they don't buy things, but I think it really helped them to be little kids and not be bombarded with all
consumers. Kids shouldn't be consumers.
Right.
Gigi, you're still at that age where your kids are little. It just takes a lot of stuff with children, don't you think?
It does. And I think you were the one that brought up the word minimalism. And just a few years ago, I was thinking, you know what, if I had less stuff through the years, I feel like that would have freed my mental capacity up to think more about spiritual things. I'm the kind of person, I stress, hey, I need all the counters clean. So our kids, they know, hey, don't leave anything sitting around. And so I tell them that, and I always put a spiritual meaning behind everything. I just think that's good when they're at the ages they are, and always. And I tell them, you know what, everything you have should be used to glorify God in some way, the best that you can. And we don't need all this stuff. We want to be content. And so they're in a good habit of, hey, you know, if I really want something, I'm going to write it down on a list. And maybe we'll revisit that and see if it's something we really want. And that's just one of the things that we do to prevent getting something everywhere we go. They don't even ask. So I think that it's important to create that mindset of minimalism and being content with what we have.
Good for you, Gigi.
I was going to say, I think there's a passage that comes in with that. Whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord.
Yes.
I had to
absolutely.
make myself say, I am going to buy this pair of shoes in the name of the Lord. And then I have to say to myself, I'm going to buy my 10th pair of shoes in the name of the Lord. I'm not buying the shoes. You don't need 10 pair of shoes. I mean, that's one of those things where before you purchase something, if you actually say, can I purchase this in the name of the Lord?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it going to glorify God? That's great. Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. Beth, do you remember that year we decided that we would have experiences with the grandchildren instead of presents? And it was really fun.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was. Of course, they were big experiences because we were grandparents, but.
But the funny thing is when kids are little, you feel like, especially birthdays and Christmas comes around, you feel like you need to get them all, the things so they can enjoy the holiday. But it's funny because they don't really remember the things. My kids don't remember the things, especially when they were little, but they remember that experience.
Yeah.
They remember that. That was it was just better.
Yeah.
And if I can add on to that, that's something that's always been important to our family. Like we like to travel, and it's the experiences. It's not just, we just want to travel, but every trip we've gone on, our kids have been with us from 6 months up. And so they remember all those things. They remember those experiences. They're learning so many different things and meeting a diverse group of people in New York. It was just from every nationality you can imagine that we worshiped with. And here in the Phoenix area, it's very diverse. So it creates a love for all people. And the experiences we create I think is so important, and it goes so much further than a mere object if you're able to do that. Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. Gigi, what lesson would you like to be sure that the younger women know?
Well, when I wrote it, and that's what I love about having a great range of age groups here. The things you're saying, like, I wish I hadn't left so much stuff, or I wish I didn't have so many things. I'm working on that. I'm at an age where, hey, I can keep working on that. And that's such a considerate way to think about things. So that's helping me. And when I was looking over the different questions that you gave us to brainstorm on, me at my age, I'll be turning 40 in August. I was thinking more towards like the teenage group and the young adult group, like the college age ladies. And so I was thinking about dating and the importance that it is that you had mentioned the toxic people that they hang with, and always knowing when to notice those red flags. And so I would like to combine those two things. Just notice the red flags, notice who you're with, the toxic people. The verse that I would like to come from is Philippians chapter 3, in verse 7, where it talks about how Paul, he just really wanted to know Christ. And so if I had to give advice to a teenager or someone that's in the dating stage in college years, I would tell them, make sure that you make it a point to know who you are and know Christ. And if you have those two things down, you'll be okay. If you know Christ and you seek to get to know him every day better and better, and you seek to put him first, and you know who you are, you know your interests and what you love to do and what you're all about, and what boundaries you have, you'll be okay. And so that is what stood out to me. I think that we should be aware of who we're around, and anytime someone's crossing that boundary and we notice that, we need to make sure that we kindly express that and be confident about our faith. And so I don't know, it's just really big to me to tell teenagers, anyone that I can, create a place, make it a morning routine to where it's you and God. Drink a cup of coffee or whatever you like to do in the morning, and just have a time for you and God, to where you're strengthening that relationship to the point that anyone that you ever date, or even when you're married one day, that person won't come before Jesus and you'll be able to recognize those red flags and those toxic relationships. And then secondly, I would just say also have that strong group of friends. Like, I know it's hard for teenagers. They have to have an association group that's big in teenage years. Let's just be honest. So I would say have some friends who really know you and who can tell you if someone's crossing your line, so that they can be that sounding board to help you have the courage to get out of a situation or get rid of some friends that you don't need.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that word toxic that you used. There was a question number 6 up the top, stay away from toxic people. And this goes with what Gigi was saying about dating. One thing I realized after I got married was I realized that when I was unmarried, men would just say insulting things to me or little provocative things to me. And they would push my button. It would make me angry. I'd have a comment for them or make me feel bad. And I realized they were just doing that because I didn't have a man and they knew they could do it. They might have liked me. I don't know. But I realized that I should have risen above their toxic comments, things that they said. So just if you're a young woman or if you're just unmarried and you're dating, just realize, say you got to have their number. If they're saying stuff to you, realize that they will do that.
Yeah, I think too, and I'm not going to remember who told me this, so I'm sorry I can't quote my source, but somebody said, run as hard as you can after Jesus, and if you hear footprints nearby, introduce yourself. And that's where you find people to date.
Yeah.
I love that. Stop, quit being so concerned about finding the right person.
Right.
Develop your relationship with Jesus. And if that's what you're doing, people like that have a tendency to gravitate toward one another. And that's where you're going to find your pool of your friends and the people to date, or those people who are all out for Jesus.
That's so true. It seems like when we're really interested in something or someone like Jesus, that it just sort of exudes from us always. And those are the people that are like that want to be around us. I love that. That is really a wonderful way to look at it. And I like the way you also, Gigi, where you talked about red flags. So often we look back and we say, that was a red flag.
Right.
But we don't, I don't know, do we not see it at the time, or do we simply ignore it at the time because it doesn't fit in with what we think everything ought to be? I think, Colleen, you got a thought on that? I see your brain.
I do. If you're talking about like a boyfriend, it's your brain is doing a number on you. It's if you're in love or you're having some kind, and it's chemical. It is a lot of chemical stuff going on in your brain. That's why a lot of people overlook red flags. Yeah. But if you have a daughter, tell her stuff about. I mean, if you, as much as you're comfortable telling her about old boyfriends and lessons you learned, I did with my daughters. I told them about stinkers that I came across, and I didn't feel bad about telling them any of that. Of course, keep private what you want to keep private, but you need to help them to be savvy, wise as serpents, yet innocent as doves.
Right.
So
yeah.
true. Yes.
We almost everybody has had one bad experience that they can use as a lesson to pay attention. Boundaries is really important. Anybody who doesn't respect your boundaries is not going to love you, and it's not going to treat you well. And it's that's just the way it is. If you love somebody, if you respect them and want to be with them, whatever boundary that they say, you'll accept it and you'll go on. And whether it's another woman friend, or if it's a boyfriend, husband, whatever. But we have to put up those boundaries. We have to set what is it, this far and no farther. And because otherwise somebody else is going to, keep pushing their boundary. How far do they want to be? How much do they want to do or say? And like you said, Colleen, it's amazing what men particularly will say to you if they don't get the message that you're not going to put up with it, that you're not going to allow it.
Yeah. And I just remember realizing, like, as soon as I got married, they quit doing that. And I guess I was a little older too. Maybe that, I was not as naive, but I think a lot of it was I had that wedding ring on.
Yeah.
And then they weren't gonna, they weren't gonna say anything to me. And I realized they were just doing that. They were just pushing my buttons, trying to control. They want to control. Young men want to have a little something to say. They might have a crush on you, maybe not, but they want to kind of push the buttons so that they can get out of you.
Get your response. Beth?
I like what Colleen said about sharing stories, because I think young people, sometimes they see us like we are now, and they don't realize we have all those stories and we made all those mistakes. And sometimes I think it makes them slow to open up to us because they don't want to look silly and they don't think we ever did anything silly. So when you tell them, this is what happened, I can relate to you, I think then they're more willing to open up too.
Yeah. Yeah. They see us vulnerable and not perfect and having made mistakes, but risen from them to be who we are now. Absolutely. I think
right now I'm in a class on Proverbs, and it's a lot of general statements, great statements, wise statements. But like one of the places was talking about, telling a young man, don't follow after an adulterous woman. It's death. It's Sheol, it's all these things. And I thought, you could read that to your son or to your daughter, and that's great. It's great, but I wouldn't stop there. I would say, okay, what is that death? Is that a sexually transmitted disease? Is that one they don't even know what it is? And I'm sorry, I mean, some of them you can treat. Some, they don't even know what it is. Or is it, maybe her husband found out. That could be death. I mean, there are plenty of people that have died by the hands of somebody's jealous spouse. So I'm all about saying, these are general wise statements, but here's what specific, give specific examples. In what is it? Your first English class. They say, when you put a bunch of general statements in there, you get your paper back and it's all red and it says specific example. So that's what I did with my kids. I told them, I'd say, this is specifically what it could be talking about. And it's scary.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good.
And I think it's important to tell them, like, how to get out of a situation too. Think about those, if you are in a situation that you didn't mean to get into, maybe you were with a friend that you thought was a good friend and they turned out not to be, what can you do? And one thing that I can't remember who told me this, but an older Christian lady, she gave me this advice years ago. It may have been Renee. I love Renee Todd. And you'll have to tell her I use this all the time. But whenever, I always tell our son, he's a teenager, or Faith, I say, if you ever feel like you're in a situation that you don't want to be in, you can always use me to get out of it. You can always say, my mom needs me, because that is not a lie, because I don't want you in that situation.
No.
Or if you need me to call you or something, just, text me and I'll give you a call and say, hey, come here. Like our son, he goes to play basketball up the street, but I never know which neighborhood friend is going to come to the court or something. So I always give him those pointers. You're never in a situation that you can't get out of. You can do something like that if you need to. So
yeah, absolutely. Beth, what you got?
All right. Here's mine. I wish that I had not been so worried about and focused on what other people thought of me. And I wish that I early on that everyone else is worried about what everyone else thinks about them too. And I think that there was this moment in my life where I really realize that. A neighbor of mine came over. Our boys were good friends, and her house was beautiful. I mean, it was always beautiful. So together, I was just like, oh, I wish I could be as amazing as she is, you know. And she came over to my house one day, and she was kind of, I don't know, she was just opening her heart to me and said, can you tell me what to do to make my house as beautiful as your house? I just don't, I don't have it. And all I could see was the dirt in the corner and the dust and the cobweb. And all she could see at her house was that. I think that we see that in ourselves, but not other people don't necessarily see that. And the people who, and honestly, the people who love you and just have good hearts are not going to fixate on the dirt in the corner. They're going to appreciate you for the beauty of you.
Right.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, we do have a tendency to, I mean, we're doing, whether the way we look or our houses or how our kids are doing or how they look, or and most people aren't, they're not really paying that much attention to it. And
they're worried what people think about them.
Yeah.
Well, that you can't. I know it's some famous person. Listen. The older I get, the more my references are gone. But it was some famous author said we wouldn't worry as much about what other people think about us if we knew how little they did.
Yeah.
Just that phrase. But you know, when you think about it, we're fixating on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, when you're worried about what other people think, it's like, who do we think we are that other people are sitting around going, look at us?
I think that, especially if you make a mistake,
Yeah.
you know, maybe say something that is, and you cringe, and then you realize that people that they weren't even listening. You know, things like that.
Oh, I just have to add on. I have to add on to that. Like I totally agree with that. I'm someone, if you know, I used to care about, at one time I cared what people thought, but people really don't care. And I just learned to just care about what helps me function best. You know, like people don't think about that as much as we think they might think about that. Yeah. So I really like the way you put that, Beth and Kathleen.
Yeah.
But it also, if other people are sitting around judging us, we don't need to like worry and start changing things. We need to be concerned about their soul. We're not supposed to be sitting around judging each other. Right. So if somebody else is doing that, it's not, I need to change myself. We need to be praying for those people, because if that's how they spend their time, their soul's in danger.
That's right. That's right. We had a friend.
I'm sorry. I've seen people just throughout the years not serve as good as they could because they were worried about that. Not sing out in church because their voice isn't good. Not open their home because their house isn't clean. Not cook or take food to potlucks because they can't cook very good. And all those. And it stops us, that feeling of I'm not good enough. People are looking at me and judging me, and it just stops us from serving a lot of times.
And I think that's one of those things too, when we start to think, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. Well, the truth is, we're not.
Right.
None of us is good. God is the only one that's good. You know, it's just accept it. I am not the best I could possibly be. I'm not. Okay. Neither's anybody else. We're all in this together. We shouldn't be judging each other. We just need to give each other a break and ourselves.
Right.
Yep. And I feel like
he used to say all the time, he said, well, if they're talking about me, they're on a good subject. So I kind of adopted that. And I know the humor of it sort of makes that angst pass away. Beth, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Your people, when you find your people, you know, the ones that you connect with, they're going to love you, all your weirdness and all. They're just going to love you. And that's just because none of us are perfect, and we all have our peculiar weirdness.
There you go. It's better.
Weirdness, it's easier.
Yeah.
One thing, all these shows you do, I bet you can identify
to a gathering of some sort, and I feel like, did I look right? Did I dress right? Is my hair? instead of thinking about how I look and how I'm doing, I try to focus on somebody who looks uncomfortable or is standing alone or seems like could use to be gathered, back in, and I try to go to that person and talk to them. And then I feel much more comfortable if like Kathleen was saying, we're focusing on ourselves when we are doing that. How do I look? What are they thinking of me? If we focus on someone else to help them, it takes away our anxiousness as well, I think.
Yeah. I think I got over some of that when I moved to Florida, because no matter how much time I spent on what I looked like when I walked out the door, the humidity was going to ruin my hair and my makeup. So it just got to a point of, why waste the time?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think too, it goes back to just knowing who you are. Like for me, I love purple. So one of the things that I do when I get up is I put on purple eyeshadow because purple makes me happy. So if I have on green, red, orange, yellow, you might see purple eyeshadow on me. So it's really not about the appearance. It's about what makes you happy. And, so I think that everybody's different, and you just have to know who you are and what makes you happy without crossing over on, not going against the scriptures in any way. But it goes back to my main thing that I said earlier: know Jesus and know yourself. And so I think that's important.
Those are really good. That's very good. The lesson that I would impart, I think, would share, and it's one that I learned long time ago. When Beth was born, when she was little, we lived across the street from, I always called it a family nursing home. They had 4 or 5 rooms, bedrooms, and they had elderly women. Of course, I thought they were real old, but now I'm probably about that age. But but they were widows, and each had their own room. There were some that were just smiled and happy and, and seemed, pleasant. And some looked downturned mouths constantly. And if you say, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. And I thought, so I noticed that the ones whose mouth turned up, they smiled. They just smiled a lot. So I thought I remember I think I was 21 when you were born. Isn't that about right? You were little. Of course you were. That's right. But I thought, I'm going to smile all the time. That sounds so crazy. Is it purposeful? But I said, I'm going to smile. If I'm not talking or, something else, I'm just going to smile. Even if I don't feel like, even if I'm not, happy, I'm just going to smile, and I'm going to make smile wrinkles instead of frown wrinkles. And so I just have always smiled. People will comment on it. You just smile all the time. And I said, well, I'm joyful. I'm not happy all the time, but I am joyful because I'm a Christian. God is in me. Christ is in me, and I'm doing my best every day to love God and to love others. And so I am basically happy, and joyful all the time. Proverbs 17:22 is what fits in for me with this one. A cheerful heart is a good medicine, and is the first part of it. And of course, research later that I've found shows that when you smile, when you're in the mirror, you see in the mirror, well, your brain thinks you're happy, so things must be good. So then you feel better, because you must be happy. Things are good.
I can use that.
And people respond to a smile. If one lesson I think that has been so valuable for me all my life has been to smile and just sometimes I'm thinking of something and I realize I'm not smiling and I just smile, and I don't know, it just makes problems easier to solve, and relationships with people are easier, and it just I feel like I don't know, I just get excited about smiling. So, but I would say when you're young, make those smile wrinkles. So.
I think like there's so many things just growing up that are just like it's a sweet thought, but there's like a bigger message to that. Like, I remember you saying, we're all going to get wrinkles. I want smile wrinkles. And I mean, there's a deeper, life happens. We all get wrinkles. Things happen, but we can choose how to respond to that. And we can choose how it shapes us.
Yeah.
How we allow it to shape us.
Yeah.
I just think I love like the immediate thought. I do that. I try to smile now too, because I'm starting to get the wrinkles. I'm like, oh, but I mean, I think there's like a even deeper lesson to that.
I can't help but think about the Bible, how we do hear the Bible talks about appearance. You know, it talks about Saul and Joseph and David and Esther. So, when we think about Jesus, though, it said that he had no beauty to attract us to him. So, I mean, according to that, you know, it makes it look like people weren't running at Jesus over his appearance. So in the end, it doesn't matter what you look like. If we went by that, we know Jesus was sinless. So that doesn't matter in the big scheme of things if we're looking for a scripture to go with that. Like, I just think that, you know, we need to be aware that, like you're saying, make the smile wrinkles. It doesn't matter what you look like as long as your soul is right with God and how you behave inwardly.
That's right. And it's so much easier to be thankful for all your blessings when you're smiling. You know,
Yes.
it just always, it seems like when I'm smiling, then I just find things to be thankful for. And
Yes.
That is just so much easier. Well, ladies, thank you all so much for being on the program this evening. And we're going to drop this program, finish this one, but we're going to make some more ways for you to benefit from our experience. So after this week's program, please watch for us to have another program soon in the coming weeks of some more ways of lessons that we would like to present to you all. So thank y'all so much for being with us this evening, and thank you for your input so much. We appreciate it so much. And so we'll tell everybody good night then.
Bye.
Good night.
Mhm.